what are the chances of the youth of today really in being included, you know, in how decisions are being taken vis-a-vis those that really affect them as citizens of whatever country they are?
Go first.
Okay, I think first I want to say thank you so much for Galaxy for having us and to you the presenters. It's a colorful studio you have here.
Thank you.
International Youth Day is significant because it's that day where 70% of the world population is celebrated, and that's where we fall on. And I say we. Okay, we. I'm not sure about Biola.
Can we pretend like both of you don't know each other that well? Okay.
We always appearing on the shows together. You know, it's by providence. And the interesting part of it is there's actually a level of awareness because the International Youth Day is largely taken over by the youth councils in Nigeria in particular. And the youth council run from the national to the state and to the local government. So even the grassroots young people that you don't imagine, but they're part of one youth association or voluntary youth organizations or the other, are connected to the International Youth Day because of the involvement of the youth councils and other initiatives that are involved around it. It's a day that is celebrated. There are two most important days in the world. It's the Children's Day, the Day of the African Child Tree, and the International Youth Day. And this year we're focused this year on inclusiveness in the global development agenda, sustainable development as well. And that's because young people are going to play a critical role in building the future that we want to see. We cannot build a future without engaging those who are going to play a critical role in that future. And you cannot build a future without us because the future belongs to us. Now, but the interesting part of it is that that future that belongs to us is actually already here. The future is not a place where we have not been. The future is actually where...
what we're living.
Yes, is what we're living at the moment. So that's why we now... our own goal is to get young people to be able to stand up and play a critical role and rise to the occasion and show that we can lead and we can bring about change. And if you look at many of the global phenomena happening all over the world, from Facebook to Arab Spring, or come down home to Suji Motors that is building an island, what's that island called in Lagos? Like the Dubai Smart City Program. Young people who are blazing the trail, who are transforming economies. You know, so that's really what we're celebrating today. I'll leave the rest of you.
Yeah. Let's quickly identify the theme for this year's celebration, talking about alleviating poverty and the role that young people can play. When you bring it back home, it sounds a bit strange because not quite a huge proportion of the youth population have moved from seeking employment. Of course, we're talking about unemployment on the show, to that path of creating jobs, and then talking about sustainable consumption and production. How do you see Nigeria making that paradigm shift, you know, of this large young population from just seeking employment and looking forward to what government to do, to that point of also creating jobs and making Nigeria a better place?
My theme that is my own thing for the International Youth Day this year is personal responsibility. That is my thing. And so if the conversation is about alleviating poverty, it is about looking within to that young person, not even about the government or a politician or about any other person out there. It's about for that young person to take personal responsibility for the alleviation of his own poverty, right? And so it works in two ways. The first way is job seeking, and there's nothing absolutely wrong with seeking employment because there's a word out there about being your own boss, and I think there's nobody.
Fire boss.
I think there is nobody that is actually his own boss. Everybody has a boss. Hunger could be your boss. Rent could be your boss. You know, and a physical human being could be your boss. But the conversation is about productivity. So whether you want to find yourself in unemployment, whether you're supposed to be in unemployment, or you're supposed to create an employment opportunity or employment opportunities for other people. So it's about personal responsibility. And in personal responsibility, first, it's about developing yourself, capacity development for yourself. You have many young people who can talk a lot, who can analyze a lot, who can criticize a lot, but how many of them are skillful? The definition of unemployment in my basic economics, and that is also ratified by UN, the basic definition of unemployment is for people who are able and willing to work, but they have no work. Please listen to this. People who are able to work and willing to work. So ability is about your capacity. It's the fact that you have a technical skill. It's the fact that you have soft skills desirable in the marketplace that you can trade with, whether as an employed person in an institution or someone that wants to start out a business.
Okay. Right.
The second thing is about willingness. So when we talk about personal responsibility, as my own personal thing for this year's International Youth Day, it's about the young person out there seeking ways to develop his or her own capacity so that you become competitive enough in the marketplace.
Okay. All right. You know, I get you on the personal responsibility thing, but then the youth of today sort of start out in life thinking the government owes them something. You know what I mean? Now, I haven't said that. Let me ask it as a question. Does the government owe the youth anything?
I think it's two-sided. I am in a different shift at the moment.
Okay.
That is relating to governance engagement. There are two ways. Number one, the whole essence of creating a government is to provide livelihood, security, safety, and economic prosperity for the people. Otherwise, we don't need government. We might as well have self-governance. So if, for example, I have to provide my own light, which I have to do with pumping machine, I have to provide my own security because I have to pay my security, my guard, and my dogs, and I have to, you know, do everything, then I as well do not need a government. The primary duty and responsibility of government, constitutionally and in all means, is to provide services for the welfare, security, and the protection and the economic prosperity of its people. So yes, primarily government has a duty to provide jobs, to provide economic development. How the government now do that is now the another dimension. So that's first. The second is, yes, even when government has a responsibility, you also, like Biola talked about, have a personal responsibility as a citizen of the country, as a member of the Federal Republic, to play your own role as a citizen. So there's civic duties and civic responsibility. And that's why we pay tax. If we don't pay tax, then government has no job to provide services for us. You understand? So we pay tax because we're saying, government, take a percentage of what I earn
earnings
so that you can provide services for me. So, but what we have is government failing in its service. Then the personal responsibility then comes in again. How can I make government more effective? Number one is to hold government accountable. Number two is, who is the government? Democracy, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So we're the people, the citizens. Government of the people. So democracy is a government composed of the citizens, by the citizens. So we elect our people to go and represent us, and then they must protect our interests. What we find is government of the leaders.
All right, Dayo, let me butt in here a little bit. Now, you did talk about the youth holding the government accountable. Now, our leaders sort of, I'm thinking that's what they do. They carry on like the youth can't question them, because even the youth themselves are not saints, if you know what I mean. I mean, when you have a huge capacity of youth today who are engaged in cyber fraud, amongst other things, and they get
every one young person in cyber fraud, there's 20 young people who are professionally successful in their business, in
but
their
then
career.
Do we have youth who can really ask questions?
So let me give you an example. I've recently stepped out to join the candidacy for the chairman of my local government. I'm running for chairman of Lagos Mainland local government. I'm just 30. Now, to the glory of God, I've worked in the UN, I've worked in Save the Children, I've worked in many international organizations. People look at me, a leader in my local government looked at me and said, it's too big for you. Why are you aspiring for local government? Go for councillor. That's what they make my generation feel like. But you know what? We showed them that we're serious. From Monday next week, for example, to the end of August, we have a free vocational training program in about 30 skills for 10,000 people in my local government. It's costing over 10 million naira. Now that's what they don't expect somebody in my generation to do. We have an health fair program coming up after that for 10,000 people in my local government. We have a donation coming up for the health center in my local government. Now the challenge is how many young people can actually make this happen. But the reality is a lot of young people can actually make this happen, because it's not just all about money. It's about ability to be able to serve. So I went to the health center in my local government. I came out and the place was in shambles. So I picked up the phone. I said, you know, I was speaking to some patient. How do you survive here? They said, oh, you know, the place is so dull, boring. They even get sicker being there. I said, okay, what can we do? They said, even if they had a television here, it will change their life because they can watch the TV and
be informed,
and even just laugh and not just sit down in the room in the bed, boring and all that. I picked up the phone, I called a friend who works in a company that can provide us that services. Say, can you do me this? I want this, I want this, I want that. I can do this, I can do this, I can do that. Let's partner together on this. Now, I'm sure someone like Biola can do that. I'm sure a lot of other young people can do that. Why? Because we have also shown ourselves relevant. We have also served. We've also developed ourselves and built our network to be able to do that. Now that's what we're trying to improve on young people, to become personally responsible, so that you can take responsibility. You can't come from nowhere and from oblivion and say you want to take leadership. It's not possible. Where have you served in your local government? Where have you served in your church, in your choir, in your community, in your student union? Those things prepare you for leadership. Young people are not too young to run. We're not too young to lead. We're not too young to find solutions to the problem of society. But the leaders will never let us do it until we show ourselves that we're responsible enough and we're capable enough.
Exactly.
Let me add this one. When I was coming here and I turned into your street, I saw marriage registry. The first thing that came to my head is, wow, they do this in my local government too. This is another revenue generation for me. How am I going to do that? People don't want to come to Lagos without a registry to get married. They want to go to Ikoyi registry because they stand by that signboard and look well. So I'm thinking in my head, when I become chairman by the grace of God, why don't I revamp the marriage registry, make even the old setting beautiful, and we say, get married here, it's good here. Something like that, where people are coming there because somehow the ambience that you get married, the service in the community is receptive. That just came to my head just by passing here. The ideas that my generation have. But we need to be given the chance. And we'll see. We're going to go for it.
Let me ask you very quickly, Biola, and we'll get back to you there. You talked earlier about personal responsibility. Let's bring this home where economic empowerment is concerned. Of course, the rate of unemployment in Nigeria just in the first half of 2016 has gone way 21% higher than what was obtainable at the last quarter of last year. And then it's easy said than done, like they say in the local parlance, where you get motivated and they tell you can do it by yourself, you can take your life in your hands. But I dare also tell you that it's not been, statistics have shown that it's not been easy for all the young people who are starting out business out there without power, with a lot of taxation that is killing young businesses. How do you see young Nigerians thrive in such an economy like this, where dollar is already selling for over 400 naira?
Well, there's no promise that it will be easy. And for any young person watching me now, I am not even promising you that things will get easier. The only thing I can say is that in the midst of that storm, in the midst of how things are not going well, how are you positioning yourself? That is the big question that you need to ask. I mean, that you need to answer. How are you positioning yourself? And when we talk about unemployment, we shouldn't just mention unemployment like it's something that exists in isolation. We should be talking about unemployability. Unemployment is a problem, but one of the things that led to unemployment is unemployability. Every day, there are people who start businesses. I'm sure if you check through your friends, your network, over the past 3 months or 4 months, someone will be discussing a new idea with you, something new he wants to do. And there's nobody that wants to achieve anything that can do it all alone. The person needs a team.
Of course.
And the person doesn't only need numbers in teams, the person needs able people, people who are capable, who can do the work.
Yeah, in a partnership.
I have 3 spaces in my office to fill. I have people coming to ask to fill those spaces. I have a conversation with them. I realize that they are willing to do it, but they don't have the ability to do it.
But isn't that also a function of the system that we find ourselves?
Yeah, good question.
Educational system and the rest.
Good question. About ability, there are 2 things. There's education, there is skill. There is education, there is skill. Some of us didn't have the luxury of Google University while growing up. But I think an average person has the luxury of Google University. An average person has the money to buy data on his phone, to download the latest song, to go on YouTube to check what is trending, to watch the latest comic video. That same young person will not go on that same platform, not another platform, on that same platform to look for how to do whatever. Is it makeup? How to do makeup. Is it cooking? How to bake cakes? Is it fashion? How to make anything? How to? There are plenty, numerous hundreds of thousands of how-tos that you can find on YouTube, you can watch and equip yourself. So when we always talk about the dilapidating structure of our economy, when we keep talking about how the education has gone south, when we keep talking about all of that, where's the place of personal responsibility for you and I? So the young person should reduce, I'm not saying stop, but if you can stop it. Should reduce how you invest your time and the little money that you can get from uncles and aunties in chatting with your friends and downloading music videos and doing all of that, and putting it into what will last, what will make you last. Somebody said that he that cannot see the ultimate is a slave to the immediate. He that cannot see the ultimate is a slave to the immediate, and that is the situation of the average young person in Nigeria. Because we cannot see the ultimate, we just get fooled around with the things happening around us right now, without realizing that the time that we have, at some point in time, you won't have that time again. The uncles and aunties that you can ask for, 100 naira there, 500, 1,000, 10,000 here and there, after some time, you won't have that luxury. So now that you have the opportunity to task them, now that you have the opportunity, are you investing your time or are you spending your time? Before going to the government, before talking about what the government is supposed to do, myself, what am I doing to enhance myself?
I think the reality is that most of us who are, somewhat doing something, have not been doing that because of our parents or the opportunity we're given by government. We went for it. We went for it. We had to be hungry. And that's the thing about life.
I love you to break that down, because I checked you up online before this interview and I was amazed. I mean, with presidents of nations, UN secretary, with the Queen, and it's amazing how a young Nigerian has achieved such feat. I would love you to break down that story for a Nigerian, a young Nigerian who's also watching and it's like, these guys are just speaking way above my head. How do I get into this and achieve things?
I've said this a lot of times. I lost my father when I was 11. I grew up in Ibutemeta. I grew up in Oyinbo. I was raised by a single mother, myself, my brother, and a few of us. And we came out of nothing. But while we're living in Ibutemeta, my mother always told us, in other words, 2 generations should never be poor. Everything within your power, you must achieve something in life. And so we have always had big dreams that to achieve something beyond our environment and our association. So the first thing we did was first to read, learn, unlearn and relearn. That's what Biola was talking about earlier. To learn, unlearn and relearn, to expose ourselves. There are many things that you can achieve in life without having nobody. My mother we're just 8 of us in a room, in 1 room and parlor in Ibutemeta. But we had that dream that we had to live a quality life. When I met Nelson Mandela, to the glory of God, I was still living in a room and parlor in Oyinbo. We left Oyinbo to go to New York to meet Mandela and came back to the same room and parlor. I went to chair a UN meeting in South Africa and I came back to a room and parlor. To the glory of God. So the point is, the background that I came out from was not going to be an excuse for me to be on the ground. It was not going to be a factor to limit me. The dreams that many of us have, many of us that people look up to in society, like myself, Biola, and a lot of other people, have come from poverty. I know Biola story came from Ibadan with a suitcase. You understand?
More like a portmanteau.
You understand?
It's not that and shoot. I had 2 pairs. This is sharing the story. So I came with 1 pair of suits and a pair of shoes.
Wow.
Maybe you don't know what shoes.
Shoes, yeah. It's actually a coat.
It's actually a coat. You're not the one wearing that coat. The coat is
wearing you.
Wow. And like what Dayo is saying, not allowing our background to keep our backs on the ground. There are 3 things, there are 3 expressions that young people have, in thinking about the future and in applying themselves. There are some people who are prosperity centered. So all they're thinking of is about the money. I want a hammer. Olamide, my good friend, is driving this now. He's popular now. So I want to have money like him. The other set of people are popularity centered. It is about the fame, the spotlight being on them, everybody knowing them and hailing them on the street. The third set of people, which are the unique set of people, are those who are peculiarity centered. Those are people who are committing to solving a problem. Those are people who have ideas and they are grooming the ideas. Because it's not about being in the face of the media. It's not about being on the pages of newspapers. It's not about being on billboards. I have people that say that to me, that you're on billboard, you're here, there. But there's a purpose to it. That's not the end. The purpose is being peculiar. It's about doing something. So, young person, what are you doing?
And see, it's also about result driven. It's not about hype. It's about what result are you trying to achieve. When we're growing up in a Bujumental, I used to dream a lot and imagine a lot. And people used to look at me and say to me, I remember I told one of my friends, Larry, that I was going to, by the grace of God, become famous and have friends in government and, you know, heads of state and government would ask for me. And they said to me, you imagine a lot. And, you know, to the glory of God, today we have in the bag at least 120 heads of state and president, you know, coming from a Bujumental. Because, number one, we chose to expose ourselves. We chose to become selfless, to be tactful, to demand of ourselves. Because everybody was born with a level of greatness. It is up to you to activate the greatness inside of you, despite the poverty. It is up to you to be able to birth your inner skill. You were mentioning that Biola was in IVOP. I'm a senior in IVOP, the US State Department program.
These guys are just having fun.
It's good for TV. It's good for TV.
Okay, all right.
You know, and one of the places I visited while on the IVOP was the Thomas Jefferson's home in Monticello's, and he was the one that wrote the Declaration of Independence. I saw the original copy. It says every human being is born with inalienable right, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It means that you were born with life and liberty and the ability to pursue happiness. You were not born with happiness. You were born with the ability to pursue happiness. Now, what action are you taking? Poverty is a relative word. There's no poverty of money. There's only poverty of ideas and poverty of the mind. I was in London. You know, I needed some money at the time. And I was praying to God. I said, Father, please, can you just do a miracle for me? Somebody called me. It was CEO of OHTV in London, Akin Salami. And he called me and said, Dayo, we have the premiere of the movie The Mirror Boy coming up. Can you help us promote it? I said, why not? I can send it to my database and to my contacts. He said, okay, so what's that going to cost? I said, that's going to cost you just, per message, it will cost you £250. 2 messages will cost you £500. He said, no problem, send us an invoice. I sent them an invoice. They approved the invoice and paid about £500 for just sending a broadcast. Now, what am I trying to drive at? I needed money. I prayed to God. He gave a solution based on what I was already doing. The question is, what are you doing and what is in your hands?
Exactly.
There's your money in the pocket of everybody, but only your idea and the problems you choose to solve will bring your prosperity.
Will activate that. Okay. Now, okay, you know, all of this to some youth will seem so ambiguous, and you know, because a lot of them have been stuck in this mode of nothing works or nothing is going to work. But then let's drive that home a bit more. Let's talk about the current state of unemployment amongst the youth in Nigeria. I want us to be able to shock the youth, you know, out of their comfort zone so that they know they have to get started on something. Let's talk about how the current high rate of unemployment has really had a devastating effect on the youth and their minds.
Yes, I think that still goes back to what we're saying. There's unemployment. Your job and your occupation is not necessarily in a 9-to-5 or in a business. It is in the solution that you choose to provide. If I run a company, UBA, I'm looking for staff, or any company. I'm looking for staff who can come and solve a problem. So when I do a job advert, there's a job description and job duties. The person must be able to do this. So if I say I'm looking for a social media manager, I need somebody who can solve my social media problems, who can tweet, who can get me followership, who can get me results,
who is IT savvy.
That's what I'm looking for. So everything in life, either unemployment or employment or be employment or entrepreneurship, is tied to problem solving and value adding. So companies are looking for individuals who can add value. You yourself as an entrepreneur, your customers are looking for somebody who can solve their problem. So now I want to go to a particular network because I can get enough data on that network. Because, you know, I can, if I go out of here now, let's say I didn't drive here. If I go out of here, I will wait down a cab. Why would I do that? Because I have a transport problem and I need somebody to solve my transportation problem. The reality of this is many of our people, like Biola mentioned earlier, are not qualified. It's not that there's unemployment. There are many opportunities. There is unemployability. People are not skilled enough or they're not prepared enough
to fill up those spaces,
or to solve the problem. Many of them see, because of the poverty in the land, they see a job or a business not as providing a need or a solution, but as a means for livelihood and to eradicate hunger. And if that's the mindset you bring into it, you cannot survive into it, because the first 2 years of your business is stormy. The first phase of business, you might not even make a single profit.
Right.
So when the thing struts, and when there are challenges in your first 3 years, you quit because you don't have a mindset to create a solution. Or you get into a job. Most companies now have challenges even paying a salary. Do you know that you can get into a business and create a solution that retains you, that if they don't pay everybody else, they will pay you? So if you're listening to me right now, and you're either in a job, the first thing you want to do to secure your own job is to become very relevant, that the company cannot afford to lose you. And if you're running your own business, the most important thing that you need to prioritize is, how can I solve my client's problem? Because when you can solve a problem for people, they will pay you for the problem you are choosing to solve.
All right, Biola. Now let's talk a bit about capacity building amongst the youth. Now, with all this talk going on about getting skills and all of that, there seems to be a glut in that sector, because everyone is either pursuing training in makeup or training in bead, or all the craft and all of that. Let's talk about all of the other opportunities in which a young person can be gainfully engaged in.
Okay, the first thing I want to say is to demystify the word entrepreneurship. The expression, be your own boss. And so because of that, there are many young people who are engaged in this craft, not because they are passionate about it, but because they want to stay on their lane, because according to them, they want to build their own empire. There is nothing absolutely wrong with that. But first, you need to know if you are supposed to be building an empire, or you're supposed to be in unemployment. And even if you want to build an empire, my first recommendation to you is get an employment, so that you learn structure, you learn along the ropes, to grow. That is very important. Regarding skill development, apart from crafts, there are soft skills that every young person needs. Whether you want to thrive as an entrepreneur, or you want to thrive in the workplace as an employee, you need communication skills. These days, I don't know if you've read a text message or even a memo from a young person before.
Abbreviations.
And the person is writing an official letter, an official memo, and the person is including what he would have normally used to have a conversation with his friend chatting on WhatsApp or all the other social media platforms. Communication skills. That is oral communication, written communication, very important. Another skill young people need to develop is emotional intelligence, which is very critical. Now, when you hear emotional intelligence, I'm not talking about something that you'll use between you and your boyfriend or you and your girlfriend. I'm talking about how you relate with people, social intelligence, relationship management.
How you read body language and all that.
How you know if somebody wants you to get out of his office, or if the person wants you to stay. And not just that, how to influence people, to move them from a state of anger and sadness to wooing them towards your side. These are basic skills that young people need to learn, beyond the technical skills, beyond craft skills, social skills. Very, very important.
Let's quickly explore also the many benefits and advantages in social media and technology for young Nigerians. Unfortunately, it's well abused, and then you see a lot of activity, a lot of data being consumed, but not much of it is being channeled into productivity. Do young Nigerians need what really would you prefer as a better solution to the use of this technology in Nigeria?
I think, as Biola mentioned earlier, there's a gift, but it can be used for positive purposes or negative purposes. Social media is a gift. So I was at the mechanic the other day, and he wanted to do a test on my car, all this scan on my car. He was looking for the scanning port, and he couldn't find it. And he had to open the steering area, open everywhere. And I said, dude, stop. Picked up my phone and went on YouTube, finding the scanning port in so-and-so car. And he popped it up in a video, and I saw it, and I showed it to him. And we went straight there. I went to another company. I wanted to activate my in-car telephone that came with the car. They said I had to pay a certain amount for them to activate it. And all I did was go on YouTube and watch a video, and I saved myself about 25,000 naira that they would have charged using internet, information technology, and digital media. The same way somebody will sit in their room and go on YouTube and look for a pornography video. It comes from the value. Unemployment and poverty has affected the mindset of our people. And they feel so less of themselves, they're bored and they're idle, the energy are not being used positively. So they channel that knowledge into negativity. What we need to do as leaders, young leaders and government, is to encourage and empower young people to become actively self-engaging, to build their own future in their own hands, and help them to identify that, see, the internet in your hand can do a lot. It's also the responsibility of faith-based institutions like churches and mosques to encourage the young people to be able to channel that energy, like Biola has just mentioned, into doing positive stuff. Now, we can't blame young people all the time because sometimes they don't know how to do it. They don't know what is right. Sometimes they don't have an alternative because the only thing offered to them is the negative. So, for example, I'm sorry I have to bring this up. There are young people in my community, for example, that are considered to be touts and, you know, area boys and stuff. And they sit in the junction, playing draft and just enjoying themselves and drinking and eating. When I kept, you know, went to them in the local government, I said, I see talent in these young people. They're not razzed. They just need to be positively used. They can't just carry themselves to go and do something. They don't know.
They don't know.
Do you know the same young people? I had an invitation to join the president of Malawi, Joyce Banda, and President Obasanjo at a breakfast, a lunch event. And I said to some of these guys that they consider as tout and raz, I'm going somewhere tomorrow and I want to take about 6 of you. When I went to pick them, they were dressed with ties.
Wow.
And a nice shoe.
Wow.
I took them to the lunch. I introduced them to Car Masters, President Obasanjo, others were, you know, with President Banda and the others. These are the guys, the pictures are on my Instagram, that you would have called tout. Now, these guys, since they've started, you know, hanging around me and seeing me, and I've been doing a lot in the community, have become more responsible just because there's somebody to model on and they've been shown another way. Whereas in the past, all they are being shown is how to go and snatch ballot box or to be agent in election. So they give them money during those periods, and after that, they get into power and they're forgotten. So these guys sit at the junction.
Of course.
So
they go back to the streets. That's what they know.
Of leaders, either young leaders like Biola and I, or government or pastors and churches, to, you know, regularly empower young people, you know, speak to them, inspire them and challenge them. That's why you go to a church like Daystar and it's full on Sunday. And you go to some churches and they're empty, there are 50 people. Because the youth need motivation, they need inspiration. Sometimes it's not about deliverance. They don't have to die by fire. Sometimes it's just about, you know, being able to understand who they are. And when you understand that you're special, there's something about you.
And you can find your purpose.
You can find your purpose. But when you feel worthless, when you feel worthless, and that's what our youth have been made to feel. How can somebody look at me to the glory of God after what God has done through me? The God, you know, over 40 nations have done impactful projects, or, you know, spoken or attended meetings, met leaders, and done projects in Nigeria, hosted world leaders, and he says to me, look at the chairman is too big for you. Why? Imagine if I didn't have the kind of exposure. I'm like, if not that, you know, somebody else would have just gotten weak and gone to high.
Let us quickly explore the need for young Nigerians to see the good in Nigeria, because there's been this trend of young, talented, even educated and skillful hands looking forward to traveling out of the shores of the... You'll be amazed. I used to work in Benin, and you'll be amazed at the number of people who die trying to check out of the country. As a matter of fact, ridiculously, you might not believe it, trekking their way through the desert all the way to Spain. People lying dead in the hot sun. And I'm not talking about unemployed Nigerians. I'm talking about people who are skillful, who are educated, who just cannot see
the good
things working for them in this part of the country. What would you say to folks like that?
The first thing is, for every young person listening or watching us right now, to know that the place that you can be all that you dream to be, without anybody arresting you, without anybody asking you for your papers, without anybody asking you for your passport, the place you can be all that you dream and aim to be is only Nigeria. First things first, it's only Nigeria. The second thing is that it is true that there are challenges all around. All around, things not working. You talked about power the other time, security. It is true that all these things are not working. The question I want to ask a young person, any young person watching me right now, is what would you like to say to your children in 30 years' time? Would you like to say that I ran away or I stayed there to make a change? Do you want to say I ran away when all wasn't working? Because really, there are no guarantees anywhere. Even the place you are going to. You talk about people, dying on the way, which is true. They trek through the North African desert to get into Spain. Some people, you see them on the queue at the embassies, just looking for, where are you going? What do you want to go and do? No clue. Because even the place that you are going to, you need a skill. You need competence. You need to have some ability. That is what will earn you money. And if you develop the same skill and the same ability here, you can thrive a lot. And it's about darkness and light. There's this analogy about darkness and light, that light shines brighter where it is dark. So let us think that the way our economy is in our country is right now, things are looming, things are not stable, things are not working well. Only the few champions that can commit to developing themselves and that can see the future right here, those are the people that will thrive. And I believe that the young people watching us right now will make that decision to wait to stay, to develop themselves, to task themselves, and to make a change.
I think I must add to that. For me, I see it from different dimensions. That yes, a lot of our young people want to run away. There's also a whole lot we're staying to, repair Nigeria. Now, may I also add that there are some people who, of course, not going to the Sahara Desert like you mentioned, genuinely want to go out and receive exposure.
Okay.
That's true.
And come back and transform the economy. If you fall into that category, the reality is don't get lost.
Someone like you wouldn't have done all that you have done without traveling.
Yes, I lived in England for 10 years.
Traveling out.
But I came back here 4 times a year, averagely. Of course, one of it was because my love was in Nigeria at that time.
I like
Did I say that on national TV? But also because, I love Nigeria a lot, and we're doing a lot here. There's life out there, but like Biola said, there's a better life in Nigeria.
Okay.
Now, there are other things they also look at. For example, if you're a driver in Nigeria, you probably deliver money and then go with maybe 50,000 in a week or a month. But if you're a driver in England, you probably go with £1,000 or £2,000 in a month. If you work overtime, you can even do 2.5. That's like ₦1 million, ₦1 million plus. So the reality is that some people look at this and say, some of these skills that I have in Nigeria.
Why don't I just...
if you're a plumber in Nigeria, I call you to come and check my store, I probably pay you 5,000, 10,000 naira. But in England, just call out alone before I even know what's wrong with your water. It's £75. Just call out alone. So these things entice people to want to go and give that skill out there. That's why many of our doctors are checking out. Because if you're the richest guys in America, but the richest Nigerians are doctors.
The brain drain is massive.
So while it is important that our young people understand that Nigeria is a home to be, because I came back home happily and I'm enjoying every bit of it. I've been attacked, I've been robbed, and I'm still staying.
But I think it's the Ebute Meta orientation.
Or perhaps it's the love that is still in Nigeria. Well, let me quickly read this feedback to you. Quite a number of young people watching TV. This is from Etio Bong from Calabar. It's a long message, but I'm just going to start from the second half.
Okay.
It says, my question to the guests goes thus. How many EDCs, I think it's talking about entrepreneurship empowerment in Nigeria, are well funded, and then good facilities are used apart from NDE and UN? The answer is no, please. If yes, can they state how? And it's oriented services, because our youth spend more time chatting and Facebooking due to all of this. And then he's asking, I think the basis of his question is from the other side. It's always beautiful hearing this, but then you also agree with me that there are people who are actually doing exactly what you are saying, but then who are yet to see the result. And then they are also asking, for instance, I've started a business, but then there is no infrastructure to empower myself and to keep doing and keep tolling the right path. What would you say to folks like that who are already doing these things but are yet to see the results?
Let me quickly conclude the other part. That, when I was mentioning that, the people who genuinely then look at the skill there and the value. So government has a responsibility, which I think this new administration is doing, to create value. To make you, for young people see you as a mechanic and they think you're nothing. But in England, they're mechanics who send their children to the best private school.
Okay.
So we must make, every profession valuable. So when I'm doing stuff in my community, for example, I go to all the associations, including the mechanic, the tailor, the everything, because we must build an inclusive society where people feel valuable for what services they're offering. Because you're a NAPEP driver does not mean that you are a nobody. It means that you're actually solving a transportation problem, because without you, most people will be stranded and will not have the mobility to be able to move out. So we must be able to do that. Then more people will want to stay. Now talking about EDCs, Enterprise Development Centers, and all the other people, all the other initiatives that, yes, Rome was not built in a day. None of us here is claiming to have found it easy. Government didn't give us anything. We struggled ourselves with the grace of God, and we've achieved something for our life. So it's taking tenacity to continue what we're doing. So if it doesn't work in the first time, keep at it. The second thing, which is where I'm going to drop it from here, is young people now we can't keep complaining about what is wrong. We need to step up and go and find a solution. Sometimes, being in the development world, or in an NGO and doing advocacy is not going to solve the problem. Sometimes you actually need to get into the car and be at the wheel to be able to solve the problem. When I said I wanted to run for office to change my own community, somebody said, why don't you go for House of Rep or House of Assembly? I said, no, because sometimes you need executive powers to be able to make strategic changes that will have direct impact on the life of the people. I want to see my health center bad. My legislator will not do that. Maybe we'll come and donate 1 bed or 2 machines. But as executive chairman, I have powers to be able to allocate funds and budget and attract investment into that area.
Exactly.
My library in our local government is in Shanti. It's derelict, never been entered in the last 7 years. This is a home where young people should be birthing their new ideas. This is where they should be building their businesses. And those are part of things that we see that young people now have to rise and be a solution. Go and run for councillor in your local government. Go and run for chairman in your local government. Go and make a difference in your own community. Stand up and run.
Okay, all right.